Start of a new week on Inside the Game. You're on the National Soccer Network, entering one of the more exciting times of the year in terms of the sports calendar. We got the Masters coming up. We got the World Baseball Classic. Most notably, we have the World Cup, which obviously we're going to talk about a lot on this show. But we welcome all of you back on as
Golf
you join
is a
us every
snooze
single
fest.
week
I
here
don't
on
care about
Inside
that.
the Game. But the Masters is a classic.
Yeah,
I mean,
Masters,
even if
classic
you don't,
this, classic that. No, it's boring. I don't watch
well,
it.
it means something to some people. You know, you don't golf during the summer.
I golf during the summer. Doesn't mean
you're
I
not a
watch
golfer?
golf.
Okay, well, yeah, participating is probably better than watching. I'll give you that. No, typically I'm not the one that actually enjoys when whoever it is flips on golf in the living room and we're all sitting around watching. That's typically not my favorite. However, I will say that it is a tradition, unlike any other, as they say, to open the broadcast. And have you seen
Yeah.
the concession prices at the Masters?
Yeah, how much does it cost to even get into the place?
Probably a lot.
So
all I'm
there you
saying
go.
is
Everything that is, oh my gosh, the concessions are so cheap. Yeah, well, yeah, it probably costs you like an arm and a leg to even go to it. But hey, concessions are cheap.
But once you get in there, dude, you can get a burger for like $3 or whatever it is.
After I just spent 10 grand on a ticket.
Is it really 10 grand? I have no idea. I've never looked up how much the Masters is. But we got that coming up. Means a lot to some.
It can range from 1,000 to 20,000.
Okay.
But you can win the official lottery by $125 ticket for Wednesday only.
For Wednesday only. Okay. So imagine you got to put your name into the raffle or whatever, and you're probably in there with 1 billion people. So
yep,
you ain't going to be the one to win it anyways. Okay. All right. So, all right.
Yeah,
well,
burgers are $3.
There's an idea. That's what I'm saying. So, I mean, at least you're going to get, you're going to get food for cheap when you're in there at the very least. But
overrated.
That is the green jacket looks cool too. I'm just saying the green's
a stupid color.
You got the Masters, as you mentioned. You got the World Baseball Classic. You got the World Cup. But the biggest, one of the biggest of all these events just wrapped up the other day, as in the other day yesterday, and that is the Olympics, the 2026 Olympics. U.S. finished second in the medal count. In the Winter Olympics. Norway ended up running away with it, over 40 total medals, most golds of any country. But Ryan, we'll talk about this more when we get into our all sports section. Obviously, that's more dedicated to this side of the conversation. But the U.S. men's and women's team both sweeping the competition in the gold medal match, and the men's team finally breaking through with a win over Canada in the gold medal game yesterday. We were chatting about it a little bit before coming into the show, and all we've seen on social media lately, and all I've seen lately is the edits, the U.S. Hockey team edits, and we're going to see more of those as we move along. But it feels good to win a gold medal. It feels even better that we were finally able to get past Canada in a game that actually meant something. And obviously, we're going to talk about that a lot coming up later. But that was, for the longest time, we were always on the doorstep. Now we're here. Now we've arrived. Now we can officially say we're the best in the world at it because we have the gold. So it's a crazy feeling in so many ways.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people that don't even watch hockey, were tuned in yesterday. I think the whole country was tuned in yesterday, and that's why I said everyone's like, oh, Canada might lose to whoever they were losing to because they were down in the quarterfinals and the semifinals game. I'm like, nah, I want to beat them. I want to play them.
Yeah.
And, it's almost like the Miracle on Ice. Does the Miracle on Ice really matter that much if they don't beat the Soviets? No. Like, if they went to go win the gold medal but they never played the Soviets, would that truly have been as big of an event that it was? No, not at all. But I want to see the best of the best play each other in the finals. If we lost the game, we lost it to Canada, we got to try to beat them again. Like, that's all what it boils down to. But no, I want to beat the best. In order to beat the best, you got to beat the best. And that's exactly what they did. Well, maybe we technically didn't beat the best because I don't know how good Russia would be in all this stuff. So that's another thing.
Yeah.
Would we have won the gold if Russia was there? Would we even been in the finals if Russia was there? So that's another question that, I haven't seen really circulate as much, but I've started to, ask that question. Like, would we have won gold if the Russians were there? Because, damn, that team would be pretty good. But no, on what actually happened, for the Canadians out there, they're like, well, we outplayed you. We did this. Who gives a shit? You outplayed us for sure. Were you the better team on the day? Technically, no, because you lost. But did you play better? Yeah, for sure. That's why Nathan McKinnon's like, who won? Who played better in the game? Like, bro, I don't care if you play better than. You know how many times I've seen Arsenal play better than this team and that team, and they still like somehow lose. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I do
Yeah.
not care. If you win, you win. And in a
Mhm.
moment like that, I don't care. They win, they get it done. And there's nothing better than there's nothing better than an Olympic sport and a gold medal that brings the country all together. Like I think of 2 years ago, the USA Avengers team with LeBron and Steph Curry. I think of that. I think of
Yeah.
this yesterday. I think of
Mhm.
the Miracle on Ice way back when. U.S. U.S. women's soccer team winning multiple World Cups. But what makes this one special, Nate, is we weren't supposed to win it. Not saying we weren't supposed to win it, but we're the underdog. We're not the better
Oh
team.
yeah.
So as when basketball goes plays France, we're expected to win that. But the way that it happened was unbelievable. Steph Curry. But we're not supposed to win hockey gold medals. We're not. And traditionally we haven't. Haven't won since 80.
Mhm.
Haven't won before
Mhm.
that was 60. So
Mhm.
60 and 80, now 2026, we're not supposed to win that. U.S. women's soccer winning a World Cup, that's pretty much expected, I would say. Expected to do that. Now, if the
Yeah.
men's team went and did it, oh, Jesus. The world would probably just end at that point. Like, the world can't accept soccer being ours. But no, we were not expected to win it, and we won it. So that made it even better.
Yeah, and I'll touch on a little bit more on that later because I do think that the underdog component of USA hockey, I could never get used to a situation in which we're the favorites. Now we're going to be favorites in some games, Latvia, Denmark. Obviously, we're going to be
The
favorites in those
Germans.
matchups, but it would never really quite feel the same if the U.S. was favored to win in those matchups. But no, you're right. It's an excuse from McKinnon, and it almost kind of reminds me of when the U.S. got bounced from the Nations League by Panama. Like yeah, they controlled tempo, they had more shots, they had more opportunities, but how many times have we seen that not work out? You just hit them on one counter, and yesterday it was Boldy splitting the two best defenders in the world, arguably, and then in the overtime period somehow winning that 3-on-3. Because you're right, there was I wouldn't say there was no chance, but that not a lot of people gave the United States even a fighting chance to go out and win that one. I mean, 18 combined Stanley Cups, I think, between 21 players on the two teams. It's just absolutely unbelievable the fact that they were able to get that done and do that. So
We got
yeah,
a
huge
comment
for
here
so many
from
reasons.
Shots by Gavin Parm. He says Canada may have lost, but they did pick up moral victories. Yeah, I'm sure they're happy with their moral victories, Gavin.
What's up, Gavin?
I'm sure they're happy with their moral victories.
Gavin's a buddy of mine. He does some photography stuff. He's been at the Whitecaps before. So welcome in, brother. Appreciate you
Oh,
joining
great,
us
another baseball
on the
person.
show. But parlaying that into what we're talking about here in our number one, it's the part that I love the most about the story of what happened yesterday. Obviously, we've come a long way, but when you watch that documentary about the miracle on ice, when you just go back to that time, right? So 45, 46 years, hockey, while it's not the same conversation as soccer, not even close in terms of how widely played it is and how widely popular it is, hockey was just a niche sport in the United States. It was nothing more than a niche sport. That specific team in the 80s, although it was filled with amateurs, they were expected to finish anywhere from 6 to 12. Like that's what that team was. Like they weren't expected to be great. Yeah, we had the NHL here in the United States, but we weren't necessarily a power in developing those types of talents. And so it went from that to all of a sudden 4.5 decades later, now we're at the top of the world. Like we went from it being a niche sport to now we control the sport. And it is crazy to see the United States do that in another sport and get to that point and develop to that point. And I think we all have an understanding that if the US puts their mind to something, they can become the best at it. They truly can if they want to. And so the women's side, we've done it on soccer, but now the question becomes, how does the men's side make some sort of generational lasting impact in the World Cup? And that's our first topic here in hour number one today. And it was something that, we had mentioned with Alexi Lalas. It's something we brought up in conversation with him. And he had admitted, and I think a lot of other players, Ryan, we talked about in that 94 team admitted that their only goal was to just not, number one, not be embarrassed, but number two, when they left the field, just feel like they left some sort of impact, that they made a change, that they fought hard, that they gave the people something to watch and something to be entertained by and go, you know what? Maybe this sport is cool. Maybe I should watch this. Maybe I should be more invested in whatever this is. Of course, the level of, knowledge around the sport in 94 versus where it is in 26 are two completely different universes. But it was the introduction. But now in 2026, kind of like what Alexi said, if we want to make a miracle on ice moment, that's exactly what it has to be. We just have to see something different than what we've seen before. And I liked how he mentioned that it doesn't necessarily have to be wins and losses. Wins are the most important thing, and winning is going to make the biggest difference. I don't think that's debatable at all. But what do we see? Are they just able to? And the fact is in that miracle, no one actually thinks about this, Ryan. Leading up to the gold medal, we weren't even supposed to be in a position to play the Soviet Union. We weren't even supposed to really get out of group play. I mean, that was it. The
Yeah, you
mentality
said they were
was if you
projected 6
play,
to 12.
yes, if you play just good enough, you might medal. You might medal. That was the mentality. And in our minds, if we play good enough, if we play just good enough, we work hard enough, maybe we'll make a round of 16. So how do they create a miracle on ice moment? You get to a quarterfinal. You do something that's completely out of the ordinary, and maybe you get to a semi, or you get to a quarter, and maybe you bring a team like France or somebody else, another world power, uh, all the way down the line to the very bitter end. Something along those lines. And I also think it really comes down to just the grit and the fight and the emotion and all those things that we love to see as fans. But it really has to be that. This team has to put a run together. And it seems so unlikely. But I think as evidenced by that game yesterday and as evidenced by, what we've seen before from our nation's teams, it's possible. Is it probable? No. Is it possible? Yes. And I think that has to be kind of the thought process going into it.
I mean, it's simple. Miracle on ice moment, win a World Cup. That's the miracle on grass moment. That really is. Unless you upset of France late, which I don't think we would run into France unless it would be the semis or the finals. I don't know. I don't exactly know
Yeah.
how it all works. I got to go through the bracket again and how everything goes. But if you want to inspire a nation, if you want to inspire a country, you have to go. I think win the World Cup or at least get to a final. I think that's the
Yeah.
way you have to inspire. Like we all said that the quarterfinals. A lot of people, I've said, I should say, quarterfinal is the ceiling. Everyone is expecting at least a round of 16 or a quarterfinal. That's great and all, but that's just expectations. That's if you get there, you get there. But and if you lose there, did you really exceed? No, that's just a normal
Yeah.
expectation that you did. Congrats,
Mm-hmm.
man. You did the bare minimum and did the bare
Yeah.
minimum job for sure. But if you want to inspire a nation, inspire a whole country, you got to go do something that you haven't done before, which technically they've
Mm-hmm.
made a semifinal back in 50, but who was actually born for that? And whoever was in the comments yesterday in my video that's like, well, we've made a semifinal and upset England. That's the miracle on ice moment. So what? The 80-year-olds have seen it before, and that's it? Only people that are 80
Yeah.
plus have seen that game, and
Mm-hmm.
they didn't even probably
Mm-hmm.
watch it. They probably either listened or just didn't care at all. But what it is you have to go out and you've got to do something incredible. You've got to go out there and beat somebody that's insane. Like if you were to beat a France, if you were to beat a Spain, if you were to beat an Argentina, if you do that and you make it to a semifinal, I honestly think and you beat one of those world powers, I think that's the moment. That's your miracle on ice moment, your miracle on grass moment, I should say, because they don't play on ice. The miracle on artificial
Yeah.
turf moment. But no, that's what you have to do, and it can't just be well. We got to a quarterfinals, we upset or we beat a turkey in the round of 16. No, that doesn't move the needle at all. That doesn't. That's just a mid European power that you beat. Great win for sure. You get to a
Mhm.
quarterfinal, then you get blown out. Really doesn't do anything. It just proves that we haven't done anything in the last 15 years, because we've made a Copa America
Yeah.
semifinal before. We lost 4-0 to
Mhm.
Argentina, and that game was over in the first 10 minutes. Like, everyone was
Mhm.
celebrating, oh, we finally made a semifinal in Copa America. We just beat Ecuador. Great. Now what? Then we get blown out like that? I mean,
Mhm.
maybe the miracle on ice moment or miracle on grass moment would have been the Confederations Cup against Spain. Maybe. But
Yeah.
ultimately, you didn't win the tournament. You lost to Brazil 3-2 in the final
Mhm.
in '09.
Mhm.
So, I mean, yeah, you probably beat arguably one of the best teams of all time in Spain, but that's Confederations Cup. That's not a World Cup. And
Mhm.
you didn't do anything with it. You didn't beat Brazil. But if you were to go in the World Cup, and I think if you made a semifinal, you made a final, or won the whole World Cup, I think you'd inspire a whole generation of kids. And ultimately, with
Yeah.
it being in your own backyard, I think that's their best opportunity to do so.
And I think there's a difference between a run and a one-off, right? A one-off is like, okay,
That's
you
what
won the
Costa
game.
Rica
I
did in
think about,
14.
yeah, yeah, exactly. That's
And
that's
now they
that's a
haven't
good
done
example.
anything.
Right. But I think about, like, like in basketball, when you see the one-off upsets, it's okay, cool. It happens. It's sports. Sometimes bounces don't go your way. Sometimes you have a bad day. It's just one of those days. A one-off, we've had many of those, as you've beaten. And even Alexi brought that up. We've had those games. We've had those matchups. We had 2002 when it came to the soccer team and how far they went in the World Cup. So we've had the one-offs, but a run and a one-off are two completely separate things. And a run, what that does is it actually proves that it's possible. And that's why 2026 is so important. It's not that, okay, yeah, obviously winning and a good showing on home turf and all of those things, but more importantly, it just proves to the American audience, as well as the youth players who are coming up through the system right now, that it is possible, that we can do that and go to those lengths. That's what happened in hockey when we went and won a gold medal. It was like, oh, like, okay, like, this is something that we are capable of doing on a high level. That's when you saw more money being spent. That's when you saw more rinks being bought. That's when you saw youth participation spike in the United States. And that could very well be a reality in the 2026 World Cup. Now, the truth is it may be a reality regardless. Whether or not the United States actually makes a run in this might be irrelevant in the long run. However, it will go a long way in terms of creating a sense of pride around American soccer, which I think oftentimes is our biggest issue. It's not that we don't have athletes. It's not that we don't have the tools to develop the athletes. It's not that we don't have kids that aren't interested in playing the sport, because we talked about the popularity of it. It's that there's not a whole lot of national pride, because their whole goal and their whole mindset and mentality is not, I want to play the game here in the United States. It's, I want to go everywhere else in the world and play there and be around the best, which rightfully so. But it's the pride component that I think is the part that is missing in all of this, because it's such a weird dynamic with the United States. It's almost like we have, again, a lot of players, a lot of talent, a lot of everything, but they're just so dispersed. They're so all over the place, and they don't want to be here. They want to be over there. And so that's where, like, can the World Cup simply being here in the United States change that mentality? And again, I think it's a fantasy to some extent, because I don't see our top end players coming back to the US, but that's not really my thought process. My thought process is the 12, 13, 14-year-old kids who are coming up. Does the USL and the MLS and MLS Next and USL, do they capitalize on this momentum and create something with the next generation, the next wave? Not necessarily the ones that are already over in Europe, because again, you're not going to pull those guys back. It's about the next crop that I think is the most important with all this.
Wh- What do you think? What do you think? Like the French basketball players. How do you think they're inspired by their players that they just had in the Olympics? Wembenyama,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
they don't have a supreme pro league like America does, and they
yeah.
want to go
I
over there.
guess, yeah, that's true.
What
That's
about
true.
Russian hockey? I mean, technically they don't play because
They got a pretty high level pro league, but yes, I hear what you're saying. They would
But
probably
so
want to be in the
all these other
NHL.
countries that because you think the world is Serbia is catching up to us, even though once Jokic leaves, Serbia will be a nothing burger in basketball unless they have another Jokic. But if they produce another Jokic, good on them. But I don't think they
Jokic
will.
is from Serbia, so you can't just take Jokic away from Serbia. But I hear what you're saying.
Once Jokic leaves, that team will be nothing. And that country will be nothing in basketball. And the head coach has even said, he's like, yeah, this is still not a priority in this country. It's still soccer. But you tell me that those French people were not inspired by those basketball players, and they're like, dude, I want to go over to the NBA and be like a Nick Batum back in the day, Wembenyama, Tony Parker back in the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Why can't soccer 100%. Have that then?
No, soccer can absolutely have that. No, it's I don't know. Maybe I misspoke. It is about keeping them, creating that national pride, which I do think we've talked about the importance of developing the domestic leagues, but it's just in terms of growing the game. That's kind of the angle in which I was coming from. But no, I understand. I certainly understand the counterpoint that you're making.
I feel like these kids would still be more inspired if they're doing it in the best leagues. Like Pulisic's inspiring. I mean, he's the best player. Argue with the wall, European fans, that Pulisic is the best player in Serie A. Has to be. That's inspiring.
Yeah.
Weston McKennie somehow played striker the other day and got assists because he's Weston McKennie. He does whatever he can for Juventus and continues to do well all the time. Like, I ultimately think the younger generation is inspired a little bit by soccer, but it's a very small group, I think. But the moment that this World Cup happens, and if they were to beat a France, they were to, I guess England too, England, Spain, or Germany or something, if they were to go out and beat them on home soil, I think everyone would kind of get wrapped around and be like, oh my goodness, what just happened? Or Brazil and Argentina, and be like, oh my goodness. So I think, but ultimately, you haven't said what your miracle on ice, your grass moment would be. How far would they have to go in the tournament for you to be like, wow, this is like sweet?
I mean, get to a final. Get to a final. I mean, that it's true. I mean, as inconceivable as it sounds, that would probably have to be it. And I would say win a World Cup, but the reality is that just seems so far-fetched that I can't really even conceive that. But then again, that team in 1980 was the same thing. I think it's a little odd to compare hockey and soccer, again, because I just think, number one, the amount of games you have to play in order to get to that point, and just how that there are so many more teams in front of you than there are in the hockey example. That's why I think it's always different to try and compare those two things. Although I know Poach has latched on to the Miracle on Ice thing, which I love. I love that he's embraced all that. I think it's a different story, but I still think that getting to a final, at the very least, I would agree with you, is probably where all that starts. Okay. But you were mentioning a couple of different players. Weston McKennie was playing great. Flo Balogun has 3 goals in his last couple of games. So we're going to talk more about that coming up here on Inside the Game. The striker debate. Who are the 3 strikers you are taking, and who's the one being left out between the collection that we have chosen for the show here today? But first, let's tell you about FC Bayern Summer Soccer Camps, proud sponsor of the National Soccer Network, fostering football excellence across North America, open to boys and girls of all skill levels. FC Bayern camps deliver elite training inspired by FC Bayern Munich's world-class philosophy. Select your city and start a promising soccer path. And right now, save $30 on registration by using promo code BayernNSN30, and that's BayernNSN30, or scan the QR code on your screen. Learn more at fcbayernyouth.com. Back live and inside the game here in hour number 1. Whoa, did you change shirts?
Yeah, I get
It's
really hot
crazy,
in here.
man. Okay, all right. Brand new shirt on the way back. I didn't even see it. I got two layers on right now, but I got can you see it? Oh,
Yeah, I see USA Hockey.
yeah, yeah. What do you
Mine's
got?
hold on. You can probably see it better this way. This is USA Hockey, but all the words are to the speech of Herb Brooks. So it's
Oh,
all
really?
yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, so
I
like
find out it's
yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, it's just the whole speech. So it's like this first part is the U, and it's like all of his words to the first part of the speech, and the S is one part, and the A is one part. So it's pretty cool.
All right. All right. I love how in reality, and especially after watching that documentary, how this speech was like half the length of what it was in the movie. But the truth is like the way the movie dressed it up was actually pretty
You
cool.
got
So I didn't
Hollywood's
mind
got to have
that.
some Hollywood
But
aspect.
yeah, they got to add in their own little twist in there, of course. And so that certainly was the twist on that story. But I mean, still pretty cold and calculated the way he always was. I love how much we're talking about this lately. I do think we have to chill out on the comparisons with the miracle to yesterday. I think people go too far with that, but let's get more into that a little bit later on. Into the second part of our conversation, we're talking before we went to break. Thank you to all of you joining us about how does this U.S. men's national team inspire a generation? How do they get their miracle on ice moment? Because we talked about yesterday with the gold cup, or the gold medal for the U.S. men's hockey team. Really kind of felt like the culmination of all these years of building up to this point. They're finally able to realize their potential in the Olympics, which is obviously the biggest stage. Even the Four Nations doesn't compare to winning in the Olympics. But, how does the men's national team create that moment? Well, they're probably going to need some explosive plays. They're probably going to need some game changers, in other words. And so the debate today is our striker debate. And as we've seen this year progress and continue to go, Flo Balogun, in my mind, is obviously still our number one. But, there have been some other options that have emerged. Obviously, we got Ricardo Pepi, who scored recently, and he's looked great since coming back off of injury. I mean, he had a strike recently that was, that was special to watch. I watched that one on repeat a few different times. Patrick Ajiman, you got Haji Wright, and obviously you have Josh Sargent, who just came back to Toronto, over $20 million for that transfer. So you got a couple of different options in there. I still think Flo is probably our best option, but Ryan, I'll give you the floor. Who are you leaving off the table in this collection?
So out of the five, Balogun for sure. I think it's Ricardo Pepi as well as he's the number two. But also I got to put into account how well Haji Wright has played and Patrick Ajiman for their championship sides and in EFL.
Yeah.
I think ultimately Josh Sargent's out. I think the whole transfer debacle, he's out. That's just my reality. I think he's out there. If I'm being honest, I think it's Ajiman who's out. I know we interviewed his coach a couple months ago, and I like his story. I think it's a really good story, Patrick Ajiman. But ultimately, I think Ajiman doesn't make the team. I don't like the way he plays in terms of the grand scheme of things. Can't dribble. It seems like he can't dribble. He seems a little bit slow compared to the other options, but I ultimately think it's just his touch in the final third that I think is lacking whenever he plays for the U.S. men's national team. That is, I think he does. I think he's Coventry. I think he's Coventry, or Derby, one of the two. I forget which one. Haji Wright and Ajiman. I mix up who's on what team. Sometimes it's Derby or Coventry. I forget which, but. No, I think both of those players are playing really well. I think Ajiman specifically has been playing really well recently for his club. But I think if we're trying to have a miracle on ice, grass moment, artificial turf moment, it's got to be. I don't think Ajiman can be on the roster. I really don't. I think he's slow.
Mm.
I don't think he can dribble. I think Pepi, despite being, I think form does play a little bit of a factor for the third striker role. But I also think Balogun has to be number one. I think he's better in the final third. He has better touch. I think he's developed a little bit of chemistry with a guy like a Christian Pulisic, who obviously, if you can have chemistry with Pulisic, you should be able to be on the roster, be on the field. Pepi, as long as he can stay healthy, I think Pepi could be a good option. But sometimes with the men's national team, he could disappear in certain moments. But I also think Haji Wright was in the last World Cup. He scored a goal against the Netherlands in the knockouts, and I understand Pochettino, which rightfully so. Pochettino's like, well, whatever you've done before doesn't really matter up to this point. I get that. And I like that mentality and I like that mindset. But at the same time, I think that does play a little bit of a factor over a guy like a Patrick Agyemang. Even Josh Sargent, I think, was on the last World Cup roster. But no, I think it's flow. I think it's right, and I think it's Pepe for the three. I think Sargent and Agyemang are just left out. Obviously, there could be an injury to one of those three that I mentioned, and some of these guys could end up. But that's kind of one of the negatives of doing this on February 23rd. So
Yeah, the truth, I mean, you heard what Mauricio Pochettino had to say. He wants to find the best fit for this U.S. men's national team when making these selections in terms of who he wants on the field. And obviously that makes sense. That naturally that seems like the right thing to do in his position. That's what he's paid to do. But when I think about fit and I look at Patrick Agyemang, especially the way that he played during the Gold Cup run for the United States, especially just during Nations League into the Gold Cup. Yeah, in a lot of ways, Ryan, I just wasn't impressed. I think sometimes he does have lead feet. I think his finishing was just not where it needed to be. The last couple of times we've seen him, he just hasn't, they would put it on a silver platter for him and he would have tap-ins and he would miss. And it just seemed like for whatever reason, he wasn't connecting with the players that were around him. Now, mind you, that Gold Cup roster that we saw is probably going to look a lot different than what the World
a
Cup roster
lot
is going
different.
to
I
look
hope
like.
that's not the roster.
You didn't you didn't have a lot of your key players out there. So maybe that played a role in the fact that Agyemang didn't look as good as I think some people would expect him to. He wasn't surrounded by the right pieces, but he didn't impress me over the summer. And I think if there was one player that a lot of men's national team fans kind of keyed in on, just kind of weighing that team down, it was Patrick Agyemang. Now I like the kid as a person, but I just don't think he necessarily flows well with this team or as well as Flo does. See what I did there? So yeah, I would probably leave Agyemang
Interesting.
off the list as well. Just don't love his style. He's had good runs, and again, you talked about what he's been doing at the club level. He's been great. He's been productive. I just don't think with the men's national team, seeing the way that he fits in the collection, or at least in the way that Mauricio Pochettino likes to play, and maybe that's the bigger issue. Maybe he just doesn't fit in the style of play that Mauricio Pochettino wants to play in, and so I think Agyemang is probably out for me. Josh Sargent as well. And it's tough because the way he started the year, the torrid start that he got off to, there was a moment there was a window where everybody kind of looked at Josh Sargent and went, okay, like is this the birth of like our next like main striker? And it died off so quickly. And unfortunately, when you talk about drama, you know, the drama with the club probably wouldn't carry over to the U.S. men's national team since it doesn't have anything to do with the U.S. men's national team, but it kind of sidelined him in the way that he wasn't, at his best mentally. He wasn't at his best physically. We didn't see the most out of Josh Sargent or as much as we probably wanted to this year. And so, is he at the same level as these other guys? I think he can be, but it's really hard for me to justify putting him in a position to have significant minutes in the World Cup if he hasn't shown that, or if he's only shown it in spurts. And he did show it in a spurt to begin the year, but I don't tend to believe that Josh Sargent is someone that can be really a difference maker on this World Cup team. As much as I hate to say that, because again, a lot of the stuff that he went through at the club level was not his fault, was not the product of his own doing. It's just stuff that he went through, and obviously he was frustrated with it, and his family and everything else that was wrapped into that. But yeah, this is probably the easy answer. There's no hot takes on this on my end. I'm not saying, hey, let's drop Flo and put Weston McKennie in as our number one striker, but I would probably drop off the bottom two. Yeah. So that's my take. That's not a hot take. I don't know. Do you have a piping hot take on this? Weston McKennie should be our main striker moving forward. How about that?
Yeah,
He's
no.
got to be our guy.
Yeah, no. Him and Flo could be on the field at the same time. No, and I also look at it like this: for a third striker option, I think it's got to be one. He's got to be a certain style, and I don't think Agyemang or Sargent fits it. I think Haji Wright fits it a little bit better.
Yeah.
Is holding up the ball and either A, trying to see a game out, or two, the other reason that they're brought on is they're just there to be an aerial threat through the air. And I think Haji Wright can checks both of those boxes. Ajimang, I think, can do one really well, and I think Sargent can do one pretty well, but together they don't have it. I think Haji Wright does have both. And I ultimately think that Haji Wright could be a better aerial threat. I think he can be better in link-up play. I think he could be better in shielding the ball, holding it up, and distributing it out wide. I ultimately think that's the best options. I think Sargent always wanted him to work out way back in the day when he was at Werder Bremen, but it just really hasn't worked out for him. And he said he didn't even like Germany too. So there's that obviously as well. Ajiman, again, great story. If he were to get to a World Cup, it'd be an unbelievable story. That's a movie in itself. I know Hollywood might, if he somehow scores a game-winning goal, Hollywood would get behind that in a heartbeat.
Yeah,
But no,
probably.
I just think Ajiman is just kind of he's just I feel like I don't want to say he's an odd man out, but I mean what he's
Yeah.
doing at Derby is unbelievable. I don't want to like discredit that at all right now, but I just
Hmm.
don't like the way he plays. I truly don't. I honestly would rather have Weston be playing striker than Ajiman. That's just my thought because just can't dribble the ball, and it makes no sense
Yeah.
how you're a professional soccer player and can't dribble the ball. So no, I don't think Ajiman's the guy. I really don't, and I think Sargent
Yeah.
is just too much in his. He's got too much stuff going on. I personally, so I just don't think Sargent's in either. But no, it's a good debate just based on some of these numbers, like what these guys are doing. Balogun, 14 goal contributions in 32 with Monaco, which means he's playing a lot, which is a good thing too.
Yeah.
Also, I think playing time ultimately can help with development as well. Pepe, 14 goal
Hmm.
contributions in 23. Haji Wright, 16 in 32 matches. Again, that's these bottom three are EFL championship players, so a little bit easier to compare as well. Adjuman, 13 and
Hmm.
31, and Sargent, 11 and 24, which I think he's only had like two in the last like 10. So it's been a little bit
Yeah.
of a struggle, but no, I think a lot of these numbers are really similar. I think Pepe and Balogun, though, obviously being in top flights compared to Haji Wright and Adjuman Sargent, all in the championship, which is still a respectable league, I would say. But at the same time,
Yeah.
a lot of these are like they all kind of come in form too. So like Adjuman and Wright are all like in form right now. So you wonder if they can keep that up. Of course, the international breaks at the end of next month, so they got about a month
Hmm.
left with their club until we're back to seeing them in March. So no, I ultimately just think that I think it's going to be those top three right there that are going to make it, barring injury, of course, because injuries are still a possibility.
Yeah, and injuries are, can be a concern, especially when you look at, what went on with Ricardo Pepi, but he's back and he's looked better than ever. And again, that last goal he scored was sick. So I was watching that
Yeah,
video,
first
and
game back
I
too.
still think Pepe has a lot to show us. And I'll be interested to see what he does show us in these upcoming windows and what happens before the World Cup. So there's still stuff to be decided, but yeah, I mean, I like Ajiman, and I'm always a sucker for the stories of going from, small college to the top level
We
like
know.
that. It's always nice to see. Yeah. And we've obviously had a chance to talk with the good people over at Rhode Island, a little roadie. So it's nice. It's fun to see his emergence. And it's a great story. However, you're right. I don't necessarily think he fits the style of play that Mauricio Pochettino's trying to put out on the pitch. But coming up here in hour number one of the show, you made a video of this over the weekend, and it went berserk because of one reason and one reason only. It has Messi involved in it. Walked into the referee's locker room post-game against LAFC. Yeah, not a good look. We're going to talk more about
Unauthorized
that.
access, by the way.
Yeah, unauthorized access. However, the league said he didn't violate any rules.
Which
So
is
we're going
funny.
to talk about that more on the other end here on Inside the Game.
Experience the thrill that came like never before with NSN's Game Rewind.
Dive into full match commentaries enhanced with cutting-edge dynamic graphics.
Letting you relive the highs and lows of your favorite matches in astonishing detail.
Whether it's a championship win or a legendary play,
NSN Game Rewind bridges the past and future with a broadcast experience designed to captivate.
call 586-304-4405
And start watching today.
Welcome back inside the game. Topic number 3 here in hour number 1 before we dive into our all sports content and talking about how the United States owns the hockey world. But first, let's get into this story. And this was in the state of Michigan. Yeah, really. So let's just say the state of Michigan owns the world at that point. But let's get into the most hot button topic over the weekend as it pertained to the soccer world. Lionel Messi. Making a mess, I guess, in some ways. Walked into the officials' locker room after their game against LAFC. Here's the video of that. And obviously, Ryan, you had a chance to kind of cover this on social media. But there is Messi pulling his way into the referee's locker room to try and get maybe a few words in
Suarez
before
even
being
pulls
sent
him
out.
which is funny in the whole grand scheme of things.
Of all the people to be holding him back, yeah, Suarez has to be the one to do it. And obviously, that's one of our more popular videos on our page. You talking about all the most famous suspensions he's had. But, yeah, interesting to see this character out of Messi.
Character out of Suarez,
Ryan, I know
a voice of reasoning.
Yeah, of being the one that wants to take the high road. But, Ryan, I guess I'll let you kind of sound off on this. I know you already talked about it on social media, but I mean, typically we're used to talking about Ronaldo being the one that's emotional and creating drama, but Messi having a not so great moment there for the GOAT.
Yeah, this was actually crazy. So in between the third period and overtime and intermission, I was scrolling through Twitter and I was like, oh boy, it's a Messi video. I got to go make a video on it. So I go downstairs, and as I post the YouTube short video, the goal goes in for America. So I was like, all right, that's sweet. So I got all 3 videos up for that. Hopefully that blows up. Then I go immediately make the reaction winner video. So it all happened so fast. A lot of things were going on. But from what I could tell, and a lot of what the fans were telling me in the comment section, was he was really upset with the officiating in that game. I guess there was a lot of egregious tackles from LA that just weren't called. And also, when you're the reigning champion in your first game, you lose 3-0. That's gonna play a little bit of a factor as well. But yeah, no, that's what everyone was saying. The only issue I have with this is the fact that Matt Miazga did this a couple of years ago. I think in 2024, I think was the year. So I guess 2 seasons ago. He did the same thing. Went into a referee locker room unauthorized for being upset about everything, and he got well, now it was originally a 3-game suspension. Eventually went down to 2-game suspension. But now the MLS says, this was fine and there's no suspension or anything for it. That's the only issue I have is when Matt Miazga does it. That's which U.S. men's national team legend for doing this to one of the Mexico players. That was like really short. I forgot which player that was, but that was the failed Mexico hot prospect. Supposed to be their next Pulisic, but he never panned out. But no, outside of that, Miazga, that's the only thing he ever did for the U.S. men's national team. Anyway, that's my only issue and I get it. It's Messi. I get it. Well, the whole situation is Messi, but Lionel Messi, I get it. It's him. You don't want to upset your the only reason why people probably tune into your league. The only reason that 90% of your audience is tuning in is probably to check Messi. Maybe 90% is a little bit far-fetched, but no, I get you don't want to upset him, but someone's already done this, and you give him a suspension. So I feel like a 2-game suspension for Messi has to be, it's got to be something. I think you have to fine him. For your point of, Ronaldo typically does this. Yeah, this is typically what Ronaldo does. But I will say this about Messi, and a lot of people have said this. Messi's always viewed as the good guy, and he's always perceived as the angel, and Ronaldo's the exact opposite. He's the devil. He's always doing this and that. When you look at the two, Messi's always an angel and Ronaldo's always a bad guy. So, but they always say Messi's always the instigator. Everyone says that Messi always instigates everything, but the aura, I guess, that Messi has and the way that people follow him, they always stand up for him and stick up for him and do all of his dirty work for him. He's almost just the leader of the group, and everyone just comes in and they're like his goons. They're just coming in and doing all the heavy lifting. So everyone has always said that. Does this take away from Messi being the greatest player of all time? No, it doesn't. But this is very I wouldn't say it's out of character based on what everyone has said over the years and the decades of what Messi does. I wouldn't say it's out of character. It's just finally caught on video. It's finally caught on him doing this. So I think there's that.
Yeah.
Is this something Ronaldo would do? Probably. I think he's probably done it before. I just don't remember. But no, it's just, and the fact that it's Miami too, that makes it a bigger issue. But No, I wouldn't say it's out of character because I guess he's done this stuff before. It's just finally caught on video. That's what I would say.
Sometimes I feel like our heroes, we make them out to be something other than human. Like we look at them and we're like, they're above us in different ways, and they're we're mere mortals compared to what they are. And I think Messi is one of those players. He has become superhuman to a lot of people, and so because of
Well, because
that,
he isn't
we
human.
don't expect to see, because he isn't human on the pitch. He certainly isn't, but we don't expect to see the human. That's why it catches people off guard whenever it happens. I mean, is it the first time I've ever seen a player try to get after a referee after a game? Nope. Is it the first time I've ever seen a coach or a manager ever try to get after a referee after a game? Nope. According to ESPN, by the way, that wasn't even the door to the referee's locker room. So he must have just been following the referees, but he didn't actually go into the locker room of the referees. This, according to ESPN and what Major League Soccer had to say. Now, I don't know if they're lying about that or if they're telling the truth, but I believe they are telling the truth. So he didn't violate rather any league protocol. But I think it's hard for people to look and see Messi have this kind of emotional outburst because they're like, well, he's Messi. Like, typically we don't see that of him. I'm sure this goes on, and I'm sure it goes on in stretches. We just don't really see it because we're not on the pitch. We're not in person. And the other thing you mentioned is it's just not caught on camera. A lot of things are said during the course of what goes on, and even after what goes on. And I guarantee you, in the long, illustrious career of Messi, it's not the first time he's ever either had something to say or has tried to go after a referee before. So I don't think it takes anything away from how great he is. I wouldn't necessarily say it makes him a crybaby. I wouldn't say there's even nearly as much of a track record as someone else like a Ronaldo that we've talked about in length that we can even say that Messi is like that. But he's human. He's human. And he's not the first superstar I've seen get extremely upset at referees before, and especially with where he is in his career, because he is the best player in the league by far. I don't care who you are. When you get to that level, sometimes you expect special treatment. Sometimes you expect the benefit of the doubt because you're carrying yourself in the way of, I'm Messi and I'm in Major League Soccer. Therefore, I am the biggest thing here. And he knows that. And I know that he knows that. And so if he, if there's a referee that, either tries to make it more about himself or isn't going to give him that benefit of the doubt, things like this are going to happen. But I know that we live in a reactionary society, and I know that we live in a society that just wants to immediately jump on everything and make conclusions. But this doesn't do a whole lot for me when it comes to Messi or changing my opinion on anything. Do I think he deserves to be suspended for a couple of games? No, I don't. I don't. If anything, suspend him for a game, fine him X amount of dollars. It's not going to matter anyways because of his net worth. I mean, you could probably fine him $1 million. He'd be okay with that. So I don't think he didn't strike anyone. He didn't, obviously he needed someone to hold him back, and we saw that. And yeah, I mean, there's probably people that do his dirty work, sure, but that's the reality of when you get to the level that he's gotten to. People are just going to want to do stuff for you just to be around you, just to be in your space, including your teammates. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the LeBron effect in some ways. Everybody follows LeBron wherever he goes. And so it is, I don't think it's as egregious as people want to make it out to be.
No, I don't think so either. It doesn't change his character at all. Like, it's just a one incident. It's not like he hit anybody, like you mentioned. It's not like he charged after somebody, I guess.
Yeah.
He just wanted some confirmation, I guess, of how bad the calls were. I guess that's just what people were saying.
Yeah.
Some people in the comments. I'll read a couple because a couple of them were funny. One of them was like he just wants his refund back for what he's been paying the refs. So I thought that was funny. But to the point of, I think when you become the greatest player of the world, people want to do stuff for you. That's why Rodrigo de Paul is there, because Rodrigo de Paul, Messi could probably hurt his family, and de Paul would probably be like, "Oh, that's fine, man. Like, it's what it is." But like, I also think the difference is between a Messi and a Ronaldo. I don't mean to turn this into a Messi Ronaldo debate, but I think Messi, in terms of like the way he talks to his own players, I think he kind of like creates them as an equal. He kind of like
Yeah.
has their back. He leads by an example. The difference with Ronaldo is it's been reported before that he's just kind of a douche. Like it's like he has had a lot of fallouts with a couple of managers, a couple of players as well. Like, is he a phenomenal player? Yes, he's one of the best of all time. Is he the greatest? No. But when you have the aura that Messi has, everyone's going to try to do everything they can for you. That's just the reality of it, of what it is.
Yeah.
LeBron, there's a couple players that I'm sure would probably go to war with him for everything. Maybe not a Kyrie Irving, maybe not a Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
For those
Right.
types of players, but no, I just ultimately think that when you're so good and you have so much power and so much say, anything goes. Messi might. I'm sure Messi probably looks down on the MLS a little bit. I'm sure he does in terms of the league and the type of players and the type of environment and atmospheres that he has to play in. I mean, look, he played in the world's largest soccer stadium in Camp Nou for 15 years almost. So he's played some incredible games, and he's played in the Bernabeu. He's played at Old Trafford. Or I don't think he's played at Old Trafford, actually. He's played at Anfield. He's played in historic venues all over the place. And he just looks at this stuff, and it's like, this ain't a soccer culture or anything like that. He lives in Miami, and he's like, I can probably go to the grocery store, and nobody knows who I am. And where if I were to go anywhere else in the world, I'd get swarmed by everyone. But no, I just think that, like, he just got so much of an aura about him that, this stuff doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Well, and you're right. I mean, if it was a different player, maybe we'd be having a different conversation. I'm sure the MLS would not hesitate to come down with some sort of punishment. So are they giving him the benefit of the doubt? Yeah, absolutely. They're giving him the benefit of the doubt. But also, I mean, let's act like we haven't seen a player upset at a referee before. I mean, like it happens, I feel like, all the time. So, I don't read too terribly far into this when it comes to Messi and everything that happened yesterday, but I do think it's interesting to see that reaction out of him, because from what I read from Messi, generally speaking, I mean, the guy always seems cool as a cucumber. I mean, he just doesn't really seem like one that will give you that kind of emotional reaction. So if anything, it's probably that referee just going, hey, maybe I didn't make the right call. Who knows? Who knows what goes into that. But anyways, Messi, just a messy situation for Messi, to say the least.
Yeah, someone saw a couple of comments here. He's got a couple of minutes. He says, hey, bro, he's just trying to get his money back. What's wrong with that? I mean, hey, if he's just trying to get his money back, I mean, I'd be a little bit more aggressive as well. I'd be a little bit more aggressive than that.
Yep.
This one coming from Alexis. He says, Miami's not repeating an LAFC choking in the playoffs. I really hope Miami doesn't repeat. I think that's the worst thing that can happen for the league in terms of that. Messi already won his. So this guy says lifetime ban and strip him from all of his titles. I'm like, all right, that's a little far, my man.
All right.
I get you don't like him. I get you're a Pinaldo fan. I get it. Leonardo, it's not even his fault. The players are terrible around him. Once Busquets and Alba are gone, it will take a while to recover. Well, we still got Suarez, still got DePaul in there. Who's the goalkeeper?
Yeah.
Dwayne St. Clair's there, the best goalkeeper in the MLS. So, sure, I mean, Busquets is one of the most... Would he be up there in terms of number sixes? Yeah, Busquets is probably one of the best number sixes, arguably, of all time. So, I mean, yeah, when he retires, it's going to take a minute.
Yeah, I mean, it's an aging roster. It's an aging roster. So I don't know how Miami plans on replenishing that. How does do you know how the draft works in Major League Soccer? Is it
really
similar to other
matter.
professional sports? I guess it really doesn't technically matter.
This coming from Racer. When Dracula himself is preventing a goat from biting, you know it's bad. Well, I don't think Messi was planning on going to bite somebody, but I mean, maybe he was. But I don't think he was ever planning on biting a ref like a Suarez does. Apparently.
I think they realize they need him on the field, or they need him on the pitch. And
yeah,
so
that
it's
too.
probably
That could be another
why.
reason. He's gonna cry why they didn't hand him the game. Well, I mean, if apparently this is why I didn't watch the game, obviously. But where did he say? You're not reporting. This is from EGZ. You're not reporting why he's so upset. If you watch the game, you saw Messi multiple times get fouled flagrantly with no calls or no cards. Horrible reffing last night, just atrocious and dangerous. Again, I'd have to go back to watch it, but that's apparently What he's upset about, do I know if it's true or not? No, I don't know because I didn't watch the game. So there's a little bit of a difference about that. So, yeah, just super upset about the refs, I guess. And let's see what happens from there.
Let's get into our all sports content on the other side. First, let's tell you a little bit about Barca Academy, proud sponsor of the National Soccer Network and the official academy of FC Barcelona in the United States, designed for boys and girls age 6 to 18. Barca Academy camps follow and replicate the FC Barcelona game model, the same philosophy used by Barca's professional coaching staff. Right now, you can save $30 on registration by using promo code FCB30. Again, this FCB30, or you can scan the QR code on your screen. Find a camp near you at fcbarcelona.us/camps.
In Barca camp, I see my son run on and off of the field. Don't miss the time to register.
Sign up now for Barca camp.
Officially into our all sports portion of Inside the Game here, episode 235 on this Monday. So we get ready for another long week. Again, we appreciate everybody that stopped by the show. Again, a lot of interviews last week, as well as everybody watching here today. I know we had a few comments already here on the show, but let's get into our all sports content, Ryan. There's no other place to start in this portion of the show than what happened yesterday. Winter Olympics wrapping up, because as we talked about earlier, United States second in total medal count in the Winter Olympics. It did not go exactly according to plan. However, I think it ended up the way that we wanted it to. But the U.S. finally breaking through yesterday, winning the gold medal over Canada, first time in 46 years on the anniversary of when they beat the Soviet Union before they won the gold medal in the 1980 Olympics in Lake Placid. So I wanted to say this right out of the gate as we get ready to talk about all sports as we hit the 10 o'clock hour here. February 22nd needs to be Hockey Day in the USA. That needs to be a designated day off for anybody if it falls on a weekday. And obviously it fell on a Sunday yesterday, but in the future, if it's on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I don't care. Everybody needs that day off. And we need to mark that as a day of celebration in American sports, because not only the first most important, but the second most important in the history of this country in the sport of hockey both happened on the same day. And I think it's ironic. I think it's wonderful all at the same time. There's only two times I've ever really seen my dad actually physically jump around and get excited about anything in my life. I mean, there were a few things that I saw him get excited about, but two of those moments where Michigan football winning the Rose Bowl, only because I wasn't around him for the national championship game. But that last play that happened, I saw it then. And I saw it yesterday with this team beating Canada for the gold medal, because it has been a long history of losing to that country when it matters the most, even if we're able to get to that final point. And while we all love to hark back to the Miracle on Ice, the truth is that I think people overcharge that point a little bit, Ryan. I think people go too far with the Miracle on Ice references. And to be completely honest with you, I realize the anniversary, we had to talk about it yesterday. It is only natural to have Mike Eruzione on the pregame show if it is the anniversary of the Miracle on Ice. It's only natural to play the clips. It's only natural to talk about it because nothing will ever top it, in my personal opinion. But yesterday was not a miracle on ice. That was not a miracle by any stretch of the imagination. The truth is that we had caught up. The truth is that the United States, top to bottom, all NHL players, all guys who are capable of going out and competing, some of the best of the world. And while they weren't quite on Canada's level, and they certainly were underdogs. And again, that is an element of the USA hockey experience that I really wish never goes away, because I think it's what makes these teams so special to go watch, go compete 46 years later here in 2026. But that was not a miracle on ice. That was a celebration of how far we've come in the last 46 years. That's what that was. Because we did match up with those guys. Yeah, were we on the same level? No. But the reality is that we didn't need to be. We knew that we could compete with them. We knew we could hang with them. Like, we've beaten them in round robin games. We beat them in the first game in the Four Nations playoff in Canada. We took them into overtime in 2010. We have been right there, but for whatever reason, just couldn't figure out a way to finish it. Yesterday was a celebration, a culmination of 46 years of work, of getting to the point of being like, hey, we are one of the powers in world hockey. And right now, today, at least until the next Olympics or the next Four Nations rolls around, we're the best in the world. And so that's what yesterday was. It wasn't a miracle. It was a celebration. It was a culmination. And yes, it was an upset, 100%. But it is not what 1980 was. 1980 will never be repeated. But what 2026 was an exclamation, a period, whatever you want to call it, on our story in getting to that point. And I think that's just the coolest part. And what you said yesterday, like coming into the show about seeing the whole country come together and cheer for a team. Yeah, man, it's great. Like I was seeing bars in Ohio. I was seeing a youth game in North Carolina. They got interrupted and the kids go run over to their bench because they heard the United States just won. I saw that. And then obviously the look inside the Canadian stadiums where they're watching these games and just the silence. I mean, you could hear pin drops. That's what I think really kind of brought it all together for me. And that the reason why it's so special is because we don't have that a lot anymore at all. And so of all things, for it to be a hockey team to do that is, I think we got a little bit of a taste of what 1980 felt like, at least a little bit. Now, obviously, we had the benefit of seeing it live. They didn't in 1980. It was tape delayed. It was, because it's across the world. It wasn't like how streaming is now. But that in its totality is what made that whole thing so exciting and so exceptional. It was an upset. It wasn't a miracle. It was an upset, but it was a celebration, I think, more than anything else.
See, I don't know if we've caught up because of the way the game looked. Yeah, we won, for sure, and Hellebuck played unbelievable. Did we catch up? I don't know, because after the first period, it felt like Canada was going to kill us like 8-1. That's just what it felt. I don't know if we could say we've caught up. Could we compete against them? I guess. But I don't think we're a better team than Canada. I also don't know what the Russians look like. I think the Russians play a big factor in a lot of this.
That's fair.
But we won't know.
They would have had a chance for gold had they been able to compete. I mean, I saw some of their lineups they put together. It was impressive.
I saw a couple, too, and their goalie situations are insane. They got the Florida goal. Again, I'm going to butcher their name right now, but it'd be the Florida goalie and the Tampa Bay goalie. Isn't that theirs? Mm-hmm. But I can't say we've caught up yet. I can't. I get it. We won. I get it. But I just think I have a hard time saying we caught up because of the way the game looked. I know we won. I understand that, and a win's a win. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, we won, but this happened and this happened. But there's a couple questions I think that, we could ask afterwards. But I don't necessarily think we caught up, but I will say this. I think there is a growing rivalry now in terms of USA-Canada. I think we could say that we were kind of like, I feel like we were like Michigan State, and Canada was like Michigan for a while there.
Yeah.
And we're now entering the Mark D'Antonio years, I would say now. Like, before it was always like we hated them, they kind of hated us, but like they were, we're gonna win regardless. We're gonna have a couple good games every now and again, but eventually we'll win, and you guys will mess up. But now that we've won at least 2 out of the last 3 that I can recall watching with NHL guys, and one being the gold medal yesterday, I would say I think there's going to be a growing rivalry between USA and Canada. I think for the foreseeable future. I really do. And ultimately, is this going to create a lot of fun hockey games down the line? Yeah. I just hope that these NHL players can be playing every single time in the Olympics. I know there's like a whole insurance policy and the players need this and the leagues need this and the NHL teams need this. I get all that. But I just hope that they are like, you know what? We got to get these guys playing, for their country, because I ultimately think that there is more pride in, again, this might just be in terms of like how many games they all play, but I ultimately think that there's more pride for a hockey player to play for his country than, say, a soccer player or maybe a basketball player, because I think in soccer, and I'm not saying that every player like doesn't regret it or take it for granted or anything like that or doesn't try their hardest, but I will say this. I think with the amount of games that international players or what players have to play for their country in soccer, because you have a break 4 months out of the year in terms of your club. Like there's always an international break. I think 4 times. I think because it's September, October, November, March. Yeah, 4 times. And then in the summer you might have a tournament. So I get that, but I think for hockey it's so limited. Now maybe there's the 4 nations every year now. Maybe. Hopefully there is. Maybe there isn't. And then you have the Olympics every 4. There's not like CONCACAF qualifiers for hockey. Like USA ain't playing Canada and Mexico and CONCACAF Gold
Costa
Cup
Rica.
qualifiers. Exactly. Like it's not.
Yeah.
You don't have that. But I think there's a little bit more pride. I think with the hockey players, and I think that we've seen obviously the death of the All-Star game with NHL, and I think what they did with the 4 nations is unbelievable, and ultimately what they're doing in the Olympics is unbelievable. But I just think that there's a little bit more pride. But I wouldn't say we've caught up quite yet, Nate. I know you said that like you feel like we've caught up. I think we're definitely there, but I don't think we've caught up quite to the level of Canada. Look, it's like the France-U.S. basketball debate. USA in basketball, Team Canada in hockey, they're going to have Hall of Famers all over the lines. First line, second line, third line, defensemen, forwards, goalies, they're going to have Hall of Famers. Think of the French basketball team as USA hockey. There's going to be some Hall of Famers. There's going to be some studs. But it's not to the depth and to the extent that Team Canada has or the Team USA has. Like they have goats all over the place. USA and France don't really have that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I guess if France won that game, we'd probably be having a much different looking conversation right now. So, no, I trust me, I understand what you're saying, but I think now more than ever, we can feel comfortable saying that we're right there with them. Maybe not that we're better than them, but we're certainly in lockstep with them. And so I think, it doesn't always have to look pretty and it doesn't always look pretty. But to your point about, the pride component of all of it, I would have to agree with that. I wouldn't say it's weird because I wouldn't say that it matters more. But to your point, you just have less opportunities to do it. And the reason why, the Olympics matters so much more to me than the 4 nations. 4 nations is whatever. That was created by the NHL. And even to a certain extent. Now, I don't know if I would go as far as to say that this matters more than maybe the Wings winning a Stanley Cup. But in terms of overall importance, I would certainly say that it's up there. And even for the guys that are playing in the game, because I remember, and, Eddie Olczyk made the same point that you did going into the broadcast that, we consider Canada our biggest rivals. They don't look at us the same way. They really don't. Matter of fact, they want to beat us down any opportunity they have. But the comment was made, and I forget who it was that was, the between the glass reporter during the game, completely blanking on his name. But he talked about how through, the first couple of periods or the little bit that he saw, that was the fastest brand of hockey that he's ever seen in his life. Nothing in the NHL has come even relatively close to the breakneck speed and the pace and the intensity and the physicality in which that game
you got so many guys, so many great players on the ice.
great players, but also it means that much more. But you also have the Kachuk brothers and other dudes that are not afraid to mix it up and get the worst out of other people, which I think is great. I think they took Canada out of position a few times and they had a chance to bury a few of them. So I think it matters a lot more, not only because they have limited opportunities to do so, but also because they're all playing around each other at the same exact time. They're all in the NHL. They're all in these same leagues. They all know each other, even across the way. Like the Americans know the Canadians, and they're gonna go back to sharing locker rooms and talking about this game. And 3 days after you competed for the gold medal, now you have to go out and play the Boston Bruins. It's just such a bizarre experience, but they all kind of sharing it together. So I think those conversations of USA v Canada, they go on 24/7 all the time, and you're always around these guys. It's just the soccer conversation. I feel like sometimes they're so far spread out that, be honest with you, Ryan, like if I'm doing this show with you right now, I can already sense that the way we're doing this right now is flowing a heck of a lot better than the way it, was going when we just started, right? Because we weren't used to each other's tendencies. We didn't know what to expect from one another. We didn't, so we
All
didn't
I knew
really
coming
have
in
that
is
tone
Indiana is the greatest thing since sliced bread from you. That's all I knew.
we didn't have that flow down. They are pretty good. But we didn't have that flow down quite to the same extent. Let's say you and I just do one podcast every 2 months. It ain't going to sound or look nearly as nice as you and me doing one every single day. And now we're 40 episodes down the line, and I know what you like to talk about. You know what I like to lean into a little bit. And so it kind of creates this, and even with interviews, it's the same exact thing. It might be clunky the first couple of times. So more exposure, more experience, being around each other more often creates a type of synergy and a camaraderie and an energy, especially between the two different camps in the National Hockey League, because they're always around each other. And so it's always there. And so I think that has something to do with it too.
Can I just say one thing? Is Connor McDavid just going to be like Josh Allen? Like, this guy, poor guy. Yeah, he's one of 4 nations. He scored the game-winning goal, but like,
hey, Austin Matthews won something of note. That's cool.
Like Connor McDavid. Yeah, I mean that's Toronto, or that's what the Maple Leafs he's on. Yeah, Toronto. So they'll never win anything. Anyway, like McDavid has lost back-to-back Game 7s of the Stanley Cup. Then he loses heartbreaking fashion to Team USA in the gold medal. Like, this kid's unbelievable. Connor McDavid's a dog. But like,
yeah,
when's he gonna win something?
Yeah, that's true. Well, and I you start to look back on it and you almost wonder, like, why didn't Canada bring more youth with
Bedard?
them? Like, yeah, Bedard. Why would you not bring him? I mean, who was the kid that who's the truth? The chosen one that's like 19 years old, the one that they had on their bench, or at least he looks like he's 19. What's his name? I'm blanking on it right now.
Daigle? Alexander Daigle?
Yeah,
no.
there you go.
No, he was born in 1975, so.
I'm trying to think. Anyways.
Oh, no, he was picked in 1993, so it's definitely not him.
It'll come to me here at some point. But anyways, no, I mean, exactly it. And that was, and also to be named MVP after you lose it is just the that's the biggest gut punch I feel like ever. So yeah, it's tough, man. That's real tough for him.
But no, I just feel like,
I can't say I care, but
you know how they're talking about what is it? How they talked about Draisaitl always being the bridesmaid, not the bride, and well, maybe it's Macklin Celebrini. Is that his name?
oh yes, yep,
He played a bit.
Yep.
He played a bit.
yeah. So
But yeah, Bedard wasn't there. And a lot of Blackhawks fans were happy about that. I saw some memes are like, glad they got our boy rested, and that he didn't want to be a part of this bad team. But anyway, like I
will say that we can still say that Canada choked it away. Like, that's two things can be true at once. Like, yeah, we did win the game, but Canada did choke it away with the players they had.
Yeah, they have Hall of Famers all over the place.
Yeah.
Canada's got Hall of Famers all over the place, and they lost. But anyway, like, McDavid's gonna have to win something here soon. Like, this guy he was down 3-0 in the Stanley Cup, comes back for his Game 7, loses. Then he loses in Game 7 again to the same exact team. Which isn't Matthew Kachuk on the Panthers?
Yeah.
Gosh,
Yep.
he owns him. And then obviously he loses this one. You can say he's got a Four Nations, I guess, but like that doesn't carry the same weight as an Olympic gold medal, I don't think. Personally.
No,
But
not
like
close.
no, this guy has just got a bad run of form, I guess. Bad luck at the moment, but he's so
Yeah.
good too, like which is the crazy part. Like he's so dominant, he's so good at hockey, but just can't win the big one.
He's a freak. I mean, I think he's going to win a Stanley Cup at some point. He probably will win a gold medal at some point, but it's been a brutal last 3 biggest games of his life have certainly not gone according to plan. But no, man, yesterday was everything you wanted it to be. And it was just truly, I do think Canada choked it away in a lot of ways. That one save by Hellebuck where he got the stick back to knock it wide of the goal was just crazy. But obviously the biggest proponent of all this is what Ryan put at the bottom there, the state of Michigan. I realize that our development in the state of Michigan is great. Obviously, you have the Olympic training facility for USA Hockey here in the state of Michigan, so you're going to get a lot of players from here. And they've invested in Detroit area hockey. But let me make something very clear. There's a reason why they call it Hockey Town, right? Not just Detroit,
We can't
but like
say that. We can't
What do
say
you-
that anymore. We can't say it's Hockey Town. We can call it Hockey State. We can't call it Hockey Town. We haven't made the playoffs since like 2015. We can't say that. We haven't won a cup in like 20 years. We can't call it Hockey Town. We can't call it that.
Wings have 11 Stanley Cups.
Nate, I was
They're an
5
original
years
six
old. I am now
franchise.
about to be 23 in less than a month. They haven't
Okay, there's
won
a lot
one
of-
since I was
there's a lot of-
5. They haven't been to one since I was 6. You can't call it Hockey Town. You can't.
Okay, but what's the biggest baseball town in America? Let me ask you that.
I don't know. I generally don't know. St.
Probably
Louis?
New York. Probably
Oh.
New York, if
The
I were to
Yankees?
guess. Yes. And the Yankees have also not been anything for a long time.
But they don't
I mean,
call
to have
it Baseball Town. It's the Yankees. I
Okay.
like seeing them lose. Doesn't matter. The Dodgers, the
Okay,
LA is going
I
to be
get it.
Baseball Town.
I
and
get
it
it, but I think
is.
there's more behind Hockey Town than just simply how many Stanley Cups the Wings have. I mean, yeah, fair point. Yeah, you were 5 years old. It's been a while since they've been there, but I mean, they got Hall of Famers. They got 11 Cups. They're an original 6 franchise, so I think it's okay to put them
So are
in the
the
area
Maple
of.
Leafs.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly, and I think they've done better than Toronto has since then.
Well, I would
Um,
hope so.
But the other reason why they probably call it Hockey Town, and not just Detroit, but obviously Metro Detroit, has to do with just the Michigan influence in the Olympics, which is just wild. When you look across the way, both obviously Quinn Hughes, Jack Hughes, both Michigan. Hellebuck is from Michigan. You look at obviously on the other end on the
Larkin,
women's side,
Werenski.
Larkin, obviously from Michigan. Megan Keller, that's the name that I was going for. That I was trying to remember. We got the Gold Cup winning goal for the women's side from the state of Michigan. So it is absolutely crazy, and I think it just goes to show that the development, not just from the Olympic Center itself and what they do within USA Hockey, but really just the crop of talent that is in Detroit and Metro Detroit is impressive, and it only continues to grow. And normally when I talk about Detroit, like my main focus when I talk about the city has to do with football, because I don't know if it's still the same way now as what it used to be, but I believe there are more active NFL players from the city of Detroit than any other city in the United States. Now, I don't know if that's still the same case, but I still think they're up there. So typically that's what I think of when I think of Detroit. But I think everyone kind of learned yesterday and throughout the course of this tournament, hockey's also right there too. And I also learned that the University of Michigan needs to get it together, stop choking, and get that first national championship since the 1990s. Because how the hell do you not win a national championship when you got all these dudes on your team? Like,
It's like
you
Coach
look at the
Calipari,
Olympic
how
roster.
he didn't win
Oh
that
my
much
God.
with all he had.
Michigan. I'm like, how did we not win at least one title since I was 1 year old? That was one. That's the last time they won a championship. So I don't know. You can't call Michigan a hockey school if they haven't won a national title since '97. Doesn't matter how many Frozen Fours they've been to. So it's that's the part where it's like, yeah, Michigan's got to win one. But at least on the international level, this week they owned the hockey space.
So real quick, top cities with most active NFL players: Houston number 1 with 37, which is 2025, and then Detroit number 2 with 36. So right about there, right about the top. Miami 3rd with 32, Fort Lauderdale 4th with 28, Tampa 5th with 25. I just would say we just can't call Detroit Hockey Town until the Red Wings become relevant. Like, they have not been to the playoffs since, 14 or 15, 16, somewhere in there, somewhere in that realm.
It's been a little bit.
Yep. And we've come close to making the playoffs, but like we can't say we're Hockey Town when we have not been to the playoffs and we have not been to the Stanley Cup since '09. Now, if they just continued to to be relevant and make a couple runs here and there, sure, I guess we could continue to call it Hockey Town. We could call it Hockey State if we want. We could call it the USA hockey capital.
They have
of
the
the
third
country,
most
sure.
cups in league history, right?
Huh?
They have the third most cups in league history.
The Red Wings do?
NHL. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, those were all in the 50s and then the 90s and 2000s.
I mean, I get it, but I'm
We
just
had a
saying
40-year
there's
we had a
there's
40-year
history there, man.
Stanley Cup drought.
Yeah. But I'm just saying that the Red Wings are the only team in my lifetime that I can remember being consistently good growing up. So I don't know. There's a history there, and the Hall of Famers and the Stanley Cups and being an original 6 franchise. I get it, but like, where's the cutoff? Like, you just go back like 15 years, 20 years, and then
they're just
good.
They
are a good franchise.
I've never seen the Red Wings be like elite. I vaguely remember 2008, 2009. Vaguely, like little bit do I recall. But like outside of that, they're known to me as like the Dead Wings still, because they haven't done anything for 15 years. And the worst part is we were like so latched onto the whole playoff streak for like the last 4 years. They were like, let's just make the playoffs. Let's continue the streak. When we could have just like said, you know what, we're not going to do anything. Let's just kill it and just rebuild, and maybe we'd be a little bit further on down the line right now. But no, the Red Wings are like, let's just continue the playoff streak. Let's just continue, even though we're going to lose in the first round all the time. Bro, just kill it instead of still paying. Who are we still paying? Justin Abdicator, who hasn't played on the team for like 8 years. We're still paying him money. Nick Cronwall had a bad contract. There was another one that had a horrible contract. But like, instead of just giving all these aging vets horrible amounts of money, we should have just killed it where it was. And then we're like, no, let's just keep it going.
Yeah. They got caught up in their pride a little bit. They felt like they needed to do that. No, and I agree. I mean, they should have just cut it down. But no, I certainly think there's at least room to call it Hockey Town. But let's take a break. We'll be right back here on Inside the Game here in hour number 2. Our all sports section continues here on ITG. First, let's tell you about Man City. Man City Soccer Camps, proud sponsor of the National Soccer Network, bringing world-class training inspired by Man City's global football philosophy to players across the United States. Open to boys and girls of all skill levels, these camps focus on technical development, decision-making, and playing the game the City way. Right now, you can save $30 on registration by using promo code MCNSN30. Again, this MCNSN30. Scan the QR code on your screen. Find a camp near you, usacamps.mancity.com. And we're back in live here on Inside the Game. Nate Wangler alongside Ryan Glinsky, getting into our second topic here today in our all sports section. Talked about the USA men's hockey team winning gold, and now obviously the focus becomes getting the Wings back to the Stanley Cup. But let's get into the second part of our conversation here on Inside the Game. Ryan, I know we talked about how do we get the NBA to stop the tanking issue? And I don't think tanking is simply unique to the National Basketball Association. I think there are a lot of leagues that deal with tanking in one way or the other. We see it in baseball. We certainly know that it helps out in football. I feel like especially bad in hoops. I think we've seen certainly teams that just straight up will rest their stars for either half the game or entire stretches just to make sure that they don't win games. They'll throw out a bunch of G Leaguers. And so how do we get them to stop doing that? However, on the other side, people that don't really think it's an issue, they like to see the worst teams in the league get the best players, simply because you'll see the team like the Pistons go from where they were to where they are now, and in such a short period of time, which they have built through the draft, which obviously they got Cade and he's their best player. But you tend to believe that what we see in the regular season going on right now is not something that's sustainable, and that this team will not make an NBA Finals. You made a video on this, but just reiterate for the people here on the podcast. Why don't you think they'll get there?
Because you want to know the last time they won a playoff series?
Yeah, but what does that have anything to do with?
I was 5
with
years
this
old.
season?
I was 5.
Oh yeah, you were.
Same year as
crazy
the
to think
Red Wings
about.
last cup. No, I say this because JB Bickerstaff has a horrible record and track record in the playoffs. That's why he got fired from the Cavs. That's why the Cavs are known as choking in the playoffs. But I also think, I can't trust a team, a franchise that has not won a playoff series since 2008. That was the last time they won a playoff game. From 2008 to 2025, that was the last time they won. They went 17 years without winning a playoff game. A playoff game. They went 17 years without doing that. And I'll say this about the Pistons. Do I think the East is very weak? Yes. Do I think this is probably their best chance since probably 2008, because they were a 2 seed in the Eastern Conference Finals, since making the NBA Finals? Yeah. But here's the thing. I think they're lacking a true number 2. I think as good as Duren is defensively and as a lob threat, I don't think Duren is a true number 2. I really don't. I think your true number 2 is a guy that can create his own shot, like a Cade, take the pressure off of Cade, because Duren ain't a ball handler. He can't dribble the rock. Yeah. Asar is not a player. Asar, you need Asar because of how good he is defensively and how good he is as running the floor and slashing. But he can't create his own shot consistently. Jaden Ivey, that experiment failed. Ron Holland, there's a reason why they call him Hustle. Hustle Man Ron Holland or something like that? Yeah, because he hustles. He ain't creating offense. And LeVert, Duncan Robinson, Kevin Huerter, B-Ball Paul Reed, Beef Stew, those guys don't create shots on themselves. If you look at the offense, it's all centered around Cade. And I ultimately think the Celtics will be going to the NBA Finals this year because I think Tatum's going to come back, and at some point, he ain't going to be the old Jason Tatum, but it's Jason Tatum. And the Celtics have a history of making the playoffs and making the NBA Finals and doing something in it, ultimately. And I don't think the Pistons, I think what's going to happen is they're going to blitz Cade like they normally do. Well, they do it every regular season game. They do this, and that. But everyone says the playoffs are amped up a little bit. They're going to start D'ing up. And that ultimately, that playoff series worried me for what the future is going to look like for the Pistons because they don't have that second guy. That's why if they got an MPJ, a Michael Porter Jr., a guy who's been to the finals, a guy that's a proven winner, a guy that has won an NBA Finals and scores on his own, I'd be a little bit more inclined to say that. But I ultimately think that this Pistons team is going to lose in the conference finals. I really do. I think they lose to the Celtics in the conference finals in like 6 games or 5 games or something. I think that's what it's going to be. I think the moment is going to be too big for this young Pistons team. This team is so young. This group together has won a total of 2 playoff games. Maybe Duncan Robinson, Karis LeVert obviously have more wins overall. But this whole group, our core, we've only been in 1 playoff series. Granted, it was at the Garden, which is going to benefit us because that's the second toughest place to go. But I ultimately don't think this team is making the NBA Finals. I really don't. I think they're very good. I think they'll beat the Knicks. I think they'll beat the Cavs. But I think if they come across the Celtics, they ain't winning that series. And then I just think the moment's going to be too big for them. I think they're too young. They haven't won a playoff series since 2008. What's telling me that they're going to win 3 playoff series in 1 year? But I just don't think they're going to get it done. I really don't. And I think they need another score to make that next step. I really do.
It's the one missing piece in all of this. When I look at this team and the way that it's constructed, they win games sometimes by beating the hell out of you. They're such a good, staunch, defensive focused team that in a lot of ways is going to be how they end up beating. That's how they end up winning games. That's how they've gotten in the position that they are now. But it almost feels like they need like what Klay was to the Golden State Warriors. Klay Thompson's role back when the Warriors were doing what they were doing was simple: catch and shoot threes. I mean, anything outside of that, whatever Klay Thompson does on the floor, whatever, it doesn't really. It's kind of null and void. What he does exceptionally well is he's one of the Splash Brothers. He's just one of those guys you can drive and kick and rely on him to be able to put in 3-pointers consistently. And so, to your point, what you're saying, defensively, they're the best team in the NBA. If not, they're the second best, but they're right there. But that strategy of how they have beaten teams and how they have won a lot of their games, again, it's fine in the regular season. I get it. You can probably beat a lot of teams that way in the regular season. But the issue now becomes when you get to the postseason, clutch is what matters the most. Do you have clutch
I'll tell you that.
players? Dennis Schroeder is not okay, he might have a clutch moment in him every now and again, but when we're relying on him, he was a good addition last year, but I wouldn't necessarily consider him that. Asar Thompson he's very athletic and he can do a lot of different things, but is he that? No. Is Jalen Duren a guy that is going to take a step out 3 to win a game or,
hell no.
make a full court run? And, no, he's not. And so the special dynamic playmaker, the star, the clutch player, the guy who's got that gene, if you will, that they talk about sometimes, the Kobe gene, that's Cade. And everybody else outside of that is a supporting cast member and is a piece, but are they necessarily, or any of them necessarily, the second, the understudy, the Robin to Batman? Robin Hood to Batman. I don't think so. And so that's where this is really hard. But it really does come down to just shooting. I don't know if they're a team that is built around if they have to win a shootout. I don't think they're capable of doing that. And that's what worries me so much about Boston, is that Boston's a team that they're going to put you in that position to where you might get into a shootout. And at that point, you can't nickel and dime your way into winning a game if you're down by 20 in a playoff game. Like, that's just not going to happen. Like, you have to be able to make shots and switch momentum quickly by having playmakers and shot makers. And so that's what is, and I understand not wanting to, from the point of the Pistons not wanting to mess with the dynamic of, giving up some of the guys that are a core piece of that team. Okay, fine. You make a solid point there, but also at the same exact time, you reap what you sow. So, so if they end up going out in the playoffs in the second round or bowing out in the conference finals and everybody looks back at this season and goes, man, we could have really used another scorer. Could have used another star, or at least someone else who was like a supporting cast member for Cade that would have gotten us over that hump. Why weren't we willing to get rid of a Tobias Harris who, again, he could be that, but I don't think Tobias Harris is as consistently good at that as, maybe someone like an MPJ. So they had options available to them. Not whether or not those conversations fell through or if they even tried to. I think that's a different conversation. But I can very well see us bowing out of the playoffs and then immediately looking back and going, oh, wow, like we had a chance to add that one last missing piece, but we didn't do it. And why didn't we do it? I don't know. That's it. That's it right there.
So I just searched up JB Bickerstaff's record in the playoffs. Boy, is it bad. 9-19. Not good. Granted, one of them was against the prime Golden State 73-9 Golden State Warriors. I'll give them that benefit of the doubt. But, as the Cavs, they were, one of the higher seeds all the time, didn't do a whole lot. But, again, that's another thing that hates me. But, again, I don't understand people in this town. I don't understand the GMs of this town that don't like to add at the deadline. I don't. I get it. It's you don't want to disrupt the core. I get that, but I see a bunch of other teams have done it. Why can't we? Why can't
Yeah.
I get it. The Pistons young core, and it's so good for the locker room, and he's such a good locker room guy. But I could have had a Michael Porter Jr. for probably 1 first round or 2 second round picks in Tobias, which Tobias expiring contract, 2 first round picks when we're good, could give 2 shits about. It's the NBA. Doesn't matter. If you're unless you're picking in the top 10, first rounders don't matter. And to be honest with you, unless you're picking outside, if you're in that 5 to 10 range, wouldn't mind giving up the pick anyway. That's where Darren showed up, and all of a sudden he's a stud. So, and he was 18 when he was drafted, but that's a different story. But I'm looking at this town, and it's we don't add at the deadline. Look at Scott Harris. Kyle Finnegan was good, but that was it. That's the only good one that we had. Brad Holmes, he ain't never added anything. The only reason he added one with Zadarius Smith was because Hutchinson died. That's the only reason Zadarius Smith was added. Last year, Langdon was fine. He did a good job by adding a Dennis Schroeder. He didn't break the bank for it. It wasn't some crazy addition, but he saw a need of we need an extra ball handler. Let's go get one because Jaden Ivey died. So it's all right, that's fine. And Stevie Y never adds at the deadline, which I think the deadline's coming up here soon, which we kind of need to add at the deadline. But again, that'll be another discussion where Stevie Y doesn't add at the deadline. But it's I honestly think if we were all healthy, you add an MPJ, I think you make the final. I would have no doubt you make the finals. I really do, because it's another score, and it's another guy to take the pressure off Cade. Look, Cade has only played 6 NBA playoff games ever. He's only played in 6, and you then expect him to go, let's say they win. I would say they win the first round by 5 games. We'll say they win in 5 games. We'll say the second round they win 6 games, so there's 11. And then you want him to win another potential 7. That's 18 games then. Cade's never done that yet. Maybe I'm wrong of saying, just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean it's true. It's not going to happen, which is certainly true. That could definitely happen. I could be wrong on that. But based on what I've seen in real life, I don't think this Pistons team can go that far. I really don't. And especially, so if I'm looking at the East standings right now, Pistons, Celtics number 2, Knicks 3, Cavs 4, Raptors 5. Outside of that, it don't really matter. But the Knicks, we went what 3-1 last year on them in the regular season. We lost in 6.
Yeah,
regular season don't matter. We beat them this year. We could lose them again. Really could. It's the playoffs. The Cavs, the Cavs always choke. But again, that could have been JB Bickerstaff as their head coach, which we now have. But I look at Boston. I think we lose to Boston. I really do. And I don't understand why Pistons fans are so upset by me saying that. I don't. They're like, well, how could you say that? This team's so good. This team is very good defensively. It's so good defensively. But you're going to tell me you're going to take, what, a Dennis Jenkins or an Asar Thompson over a Jaylen Brown who's playing at an MVP level? You're telling me you're going to take, what, a Peyton Pritchard over a Dennis Jenkins? No, I'm taking Peyton Pritchard. They have stars. We have a good collective team together, but I've seen that a couple times in the NBA playoffs. Think of a team like the Atlanta Hawks with Al Horford, Kyle Korver, Jeff Teague, and all them. They were a good overall team, but guess what? When they came up against the stars, LeBron James and Kyrie Irving happened, and Kevin Love happened. They beat the shit out of them in 4 games, 5 games, whatever it was.
Yeah. And regular season records I hate that when people are like, well, in the regular season. You remember when the Pistons played LeBron's Heat? Was it the Miami Heat? No, he was back on the Cavs when they played him in the first round. And I think we had just gotten Blake Griffin that year. Anyways, we got swept out of the first round. It wasn't even a competition, wasn't even close. The only game that was close was game 4, and it was like a 2-point loss, but we still got swept at home. But either way, that year I believe we swept the Cavs during the regular season. Now, I don't know if LeBron played in any of those games, but we swept them. And then we go into the postseason, we just get obviously bashed. So regular season, the playoffs and the regular season are 2 completely separate things in the NBA, and they continue to become more and more so because, again, the regular season is just getting watered down. So you can't really look at any of that. But no, I think for Detroit fans, I think it's hard for them to admit, but it's something they need to be willing to admit. And that's right now the Celtics are they're a matchup nightmare. We might be able to hold them cold for a stretch of time, but can we consistently score to the level that we need to in order to go out and win an NBA championship? Which that at the end of the day, with the way the modern game is, you need scores. And I just don't know if the Pistons have enough firepower in that way. Maybe they get there on the power of friendship. I feel like the 2008
Jeez.
Pistons team
That's not a good
got
way
there
to look at
got
it.
there on the power of friendship. Okay, they won that NBA championship on the power of friendship. Also some knockdown defense. But again, that was a different game than what it is now. Like, you can't build the same way. So I think it is 100% a concern. But again, you never know. I mean, maybe they get a lucky run. I feel like Cade, you're right. I think last year was infinitely valuable for him in the way of
Yeah, I would agree.
experience. Yes, he's had limited games. Yes, but I think for that young team to go into New York and in the postseason, which I'm sure is probably just the most raucous environment in the world, that is valuable experience for a young core of players who all came back this year and have obviously learned from those lessons. So despite the fact that he's not a savvy vet and he doesn't have these long playoff runs, I still think he learned a lot of lessons from that alongside the rest of this team. So I think they're more playoff ready from a mentality perspective. I wouldn't expect to see a lot of what we saw, especially early in games last year, which is they just looked nervous. Like, they just did stupid stuff, gave away stupid turnovers, like put themselves in bad positions.
Yeah.
Do I expect roughly the same this year? No, not nearly as much, but again, you just need another clutch option, because we're getting to this area where, like, if we go into the playoffs and Cade scores 40-45 and we end up losing, it's like you're going to see that we need somebody else.
Exactly.
We needed somebody else.
And it's not a knock at the Pistons, what I'm saying. This isn't a knock, because I still think they're a good
Right.
team. But it just feels like we're lacking something. And this was a player I was thinking of earlier, because the Celtics added him at the deadline, Vucevic, which he's not this world beater, but for some reason against us, he always just, like, kills it. So there's that. Like, he just kills us. I don't know why. And honestly, that's where I thought the Pistons would beat the Celtics is down low. But now that I look at that situation, I honestly don't know. Maybe at point guard we're better. Obviously, Peyton Pritchard versus Cade. But then I look at the two, Jaylen Brown, and if Tatum comes back, it's Tatum. I don't know who their four is exactly, because sometimes they play small with, like, Derek White and stuff. So no, Sam Hauser, I forgot about him. Joey Hauser's brother. But no, it's just, honestly, I think if Jason Tatum comes back, I think it's wraps. But I'm looking at it now. If I'm looking at today's current roster, I think it's a 7-game series. I think that's what it is. A 6 or I don't even want to say it. I think it's a 7-game series. I don't even want to say it's going to be a 6-game series. But no, that's what I think it is. I just don't think they make the finals. That's all.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. I mean, it's just, it's certainly it's a tough one to listen to if you're a Detroit fan, because you are so bought into this team and what they have done and how they have built, and it's been impressive in that way. But it's just, you gotta be realistic when you look at the picture in the East, and the picture is Boston. You have to go through Boston.
Yeah, and the people there in the comments are like, "Well, this team has the identity of the old Pistons." Yeah, for sure. But you also knew it took Isaiah and the Bad Boys a very long time to get over the hump in Boston. Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, and Parrish. It took them a minute. It took them a minute to get over. And then, to be honest, I don't think the going to work Pistons ever wins. A team like that ever wins a championship again. I just think the way that team played offense, and the way that the game is now called, and you have to have superstars everywhere, and it's such an offensive-oriented game now, I just don't think that can happen again. Were the going-to-work Pistons great?
Yeah.
Defensively, 100%. Offensively, jeez, that was bad. But no, it's just like, I don't know. I just can't see a team that's, like, based on defense win the league and everything. So
yeah,
I was looking at a soccer thing and win the league, win the title.
No,
it's not win the league in the American sports. It's win the title. So championship.
The good defensive basketball wins games, sure, but it's tough when you're talking about winning championships. Plus, when you look at that team, we had the ultimate trump card for Shaq, which was Ben Wallace, right? So you can't really get any better than that. So, like, it essentially became Kobe Bryant versus the Detroit Pistons. And so I guess in that scenario, we, strength in numbers at that point. But let's take one more break here on Inside the Game. When we come back, we will wrap up our conversation. We'll also get into question of the day on the other end. Your episode number 1 of this week. This is 235 on Inside the Game.
Experience the thrill of the game like never before with NSN's Game Rewind.
Dive into full match commentaries enhanced with cutting-edge dynamic graphics.
Letting you relive the highs and lows of your favorite matches in astonishing detail.
Whether it's a championship win or a legendary play,
NSN Game Rewind bridges the past and future with a broadcast experience designed to captivate.
call 586-304-4405
And start watching today.
Back and live here on Inside the Game, episode 235, first episode of the week. By the way, I wanted to mention this. I can't believe I even forgot this earlier on in the show when talking about USA hockey. Johnny Gaudreau and USA honoring him after winning the gold medal was awesome. That was probably the best part. Was killed by a drunk driver. His family was there though. His kids were there, and they were part of that picture after the game. So cool, awesome gesture from USA Hockey. But getting into our final topic here on the show today, Michigan taking on Duke over the weekend, ended up falling to the Blue Devils in that game, and what Ryan very well could be preview the national championship game.
Yeah, I think you're right. But again, Duke's got to get there. And so does Michigan. And when you look at
true.
the history of the NCAA tournament, freshmen typically don't get there. A team with a lot of freshmen that play consistently. There's only been 2 teams that have done it: 2015 Duke and the Anthony Davis Kentucky team, which I think was 11 or 12. I don't remember exactly which year. But anyway, the point is of this game, and one of my biggest takeaways is I feel really confident on this Michigan team winning a national championship based on this game. I really do, because this is the one team I think in the country that really matches up well with Michigan. And a night where, let's be honest, there's a lot. I'm not saying this is not an excuse for everybody. This is not an excuse for Michigan losing, but a lot of questionable calls. I'm just saying Cam Boozer should have fouled out when he slapped Merez Johnson in the head as he went up for a dunk with 4 minutes to go. And then everyone literally stops play. And then they're like, oh, wait, they didn't call a foul on him slapping in the head. I guess we're going to keep going. But there's a lot of questionable calls. And I'm not making that as an excuse. I'm just saying there was a lot of questionable calls. And a night where they didn't shoot from 3 particularly well, but they still were in the game till the end. And I feel really confident in this team of making a deep run, at least getting to the Final Four. Look, UCLA beat Illinois, so as long as Michigan, if Michigan wins one more game to end the year, they at a minimum clinch a share to win the Big Ten, which they have Minnesota coming up on Tuesday. Then I think they have Illinois, then Iowa on the road, Illinois on the road, Iowa on the road, and then Michigan State to wrap things up, which, again, I still think they beat Michigan State again. Illinois is the only team that, kind of scares me a little bit, I guess, in terms of the Big Ten. Always have, based on just their size. But I think they're like lacking a step or so. They seem a little slow. But no, I feel really confident in this team of making a national championship. I thought Yaxel Lenneborg was a star in that game. Cadeau had a little scary incident for a second, but luckily it was just a stinger. Mara was battling foul trouble, which 2 of his fouls he had all ball, which made no sense to me. And it's just on a night where it's a lot of questionable calls, which the main referee that was there, his name's Roger something. Duke is since last year, since John Shire has been there, Duke is 13-0 with this specific referee there, and I think they're 11-2 against the spread, which is Not saying there's anything in it. I'm just saying it's a little bit questionable. And just the way that game was officiated, I thought was rather fishy, I would say.
You're good at cooking up those conspiracy theories. I think you should post more about that. I think that would get a lot of
I'll
attention
do another one
coming to
today
our
at some
page.
point on it. I was
Just
going to do one
saying, if
yesterday,
you were
but
to-
Miracle on Ice happened, or the hockey game happened, and I couldn't really do anything.
If you were to put the math together and put that out to the people, they might have something to say about that. So I'm just saying,
I'll put one out
that
there
sounds
today.
pretty convincing from my part. No, if you get a couple of different breaks, if you get a few more rebounds, if you hit a few more shots, it's a completely different result. Michigan ends up winning that game. I mean, what you wanted to see in that trip, to play Duke was, can they battle and fight for the entire time? Are they a good matchup against them? Is this a team that they can compete against? Because the one thing Michigan hasn't had all year, Ryan, and what shocks me, because when you look at the remainder of the top 10 throughout the course of the year, I feel like everyone's had one. They haven't really had like a stinker. They haven't really had a game where they like,
played a bad
they've
half
lost
against
games,
Northwestern, but that was about it.
a bad half, but they haven't got like blown out. They haven't had like a
Exactly.
crooked number put up on them. Like every single game they are in it. And even in that Duke game, like you could have argued if they just learned how to finish, or if they got a couple of different calls, then yeah, that's a different story. Then Michigan still wins the game. So they competed all the way through, despite, as you talked about, a handful of bad calls, which I'm not always the first to like go after and talk about referees. I just think that's so typical of sports fans. But I get you said a few things that cracked me up there though, and maybe you have a point with what you're saying, but I think they showed that they can compete and they can fight and they can hang with the other best teams in the country. And Duke certainly is one of those teams. And they had opportunities. They just couldn't close on it. But now is the time where you learn those things, versus when you get into March and all of a sudden now it's win in advance. Now you have no options. Now you just have to win. So, I think it was a tight game. I think it was a close game. I think it told us a lot about this team, and not all bad. Obviously disappointed that they lost, but I still think there's good things to take away from it, like you said.
Yeah, no, I would agree. But no, I think just if any, there's a couple calls that just were funny. I just remembered the definite hook, the textbook hook and hold on Mara. Just saying, and they even went to review it and they didn't see anything. And then every time a Michigan player would like dive on the ball for a like on the floor, they'd go like dive for it. They were always called for a travel. Yet when Cam Boozer goes down, does the same thing. He throws it for a pass, and they're like, "Oh no, it's all good, dunk. It's all good. It's all good."
Yeah. But let's get into question of the day.
Question of the day, of course, sponsored by Salt Athletic, official sponsor of us here at the National Soccer Network. Use promo code NSN15 to save 15% off. The #1 smell-proof cleat bag that works, which, again, I lost. Scan the QR code on your screen or visit saltathletic.com today. But if you want a chance to win a free Salt Athletic bag, just head over to our Instagram, which I'll be putting up a couple of highlights from our games this weekend. Some phenomenal Major League indoor soccer games this weekend. Drop us a follow at NatSoccerTV, tag a friend, and comment hashtag NSN Salt giveaway on any of those Salt Athletic bags, or posts, I should say, rather. But question of the day: what was a better Secretary of Defense game? Tim Howard versus Belgium, where he made 16 saves, or Connor Hellebuck yesterday?
Well, I think I saw that post from Barstool that said that their co-secretary of defense is now after that game from Hellebuck.
Let's make a video on that later.
Man. Timmy Howard or Connor Hellebuck? Oh, man. I feel like it would be sacrilegious for me to say Connor Hellebuck, right? Because I work for the National Soccer Network. I can't do that.
So the only issue I have, the only thing that I know people will say Hellebuck is obviously because the U.S. won. And look, if Chris Wondolowski didn't blow a sitter against Belgium, I think there was a chance they could have won in the shootout. But again, it's the same situation. Like, both of them were in the same situation. Like, Belgium was just pounding the USA. Pause. Like, constantly, time and time again. And Tim Howard comes up big time save, big time save, big time save. And 16 saves, a World Cup record. But Hellebuck yesterday, I think, with the significance of everything, because like I don't want it to just be like the result of the game. I want to look at the player for player performance. But at the same time, it's Canada. What happened? It's the best players in the world. Belgium had maybe a couple. Oh, crap. That's prime Hazard time. Oh, that's 2014, so that's prime Eden Hazard, prime Romelu Lukaku, prime Kevin De Bruyne. Jesus. I didn't think all this all the way through. Oh, God. I'm going to say Hellebuck.
Man.
I am. I think yesterday, winning the gold medal, too, in the gold medal game compared to a round of 16. But, man, like, dude,
it's close. It's close, man. Yeah. It's close, and that's tough to it's tough to say. I mean, I guess the benefit is in soccer, obviously you can get sent off for a red card, but it's not like hockey where it's like, all right, 2 minutes and then you get to come back. But like the 5-on-3 yesterday and the stick save he made that really won the United States the game before anything else happened. Yeah, I'll probably go with Hellebuck. Just by a little, not by a lot. Obviously, the Tim Howard game, but it's also there's a little bit of recency bias too, because I'm still fresh off of the emotional high of watching that game. So it's like you're always like you just saw it yesterday, so it's like that's the greatest thing I've ever seen. Nothing's gonna ever top it, you know. But
no, I definitely think I hope I can watch something that tops that. I still would take the Michigan Rose Bowl win over Alabama. I'm just saying. That's just me, though.
Oh, yeah.
But, and the Natty. And if basketball somehow wins the Natty, that'd be sweet, too, because then I can tell all my MSU So my biggest knock on MSU basketball is I say to all my MSU friends, look, I'm 22. We're either 22 or 23-year-olds. Some are like 24, maybe one's 25. And once Michigan State's last national championship, I was -3 years old. Some were just born, so I like to tell them. I go, do you recall where you watched the game? Where Michigan State won the Natty? And they all say, oh. So now I can tell them I recall where I watched the Michigan National Championship game against Washington, and now I hope if Michigan basketball wins a national championship, I will text them immediately like, I recall where I was watching this game, just to, get them going.
Much like taking hockey from Canada, I'm sure it would be nice to take basketball from Michigan State. So we'll see
if you win a national championship, yeah.
We'll see if that ends up happening. But
that
wraps up.
Could you imagine if in 1 year, because obviously they're going to win at least a share of the Big Ten, so they'll hang a banner for that.
Yeah.
If they somehow win the Big Ten tournament, which there's a chance they could based on who they've beaten so far. They beat Purdue. They beat Michigan State. Wisconsin. Wisconsin's the most bipolar team in all the country. Like, they might lose in the if Wisconsin can somehow, if they could just beat the easy teams, they might win a national championship. I'm just saying. And then, and if they were to beat Illinois, they beat Michigan State again. I mean, there's no question they can't win the Big Ten tournament again. And then you go on, win a national championship. That's 4 banners in a year because you obviously hang the Final Four banner. You win the 2 Big Tens, the Natty. I mean, talk about maybe the greatest basketball season of all time.
Yeah. No, I would argue, and they have a very realistic chance of making that happening. But March is weird, and March will be weird again this year, and I hope it's weird because that's what makes it great. Outside of Michigan, it can be weird everywhere else. But that wraps up number 235 here on Inside the Game. Go USA, suck it Canada, as our friend Ryan likes to say.
USA,
suck it Canada Part 2. USA. But until we join you guys again tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., that's it for 235 here on Inside the Game.
From the biggest matches to the hottest takes, Jonathan Turner and Nathan Wenger bring you the stories, the analysis, and the edge you won't get anywhere else. Streaming live weekdays at 9 a.m. on YouTube, Roku TV, Facebook, Twitter, and all major platforms. No filters, no fluff, just real talk.